really needs to be talked about these topics. And one of the other things that we notice is that people, when they go to work, don't have time to talk about work. And that's how problems build and build and build, is we're so busy that we can't make things better. So if you can find ways to trick your colleagues into doing something like this, either early in the morning or before people start actually working, you can get in, and as you can see, in an hour, very deeply discuss something and then figure out how to act on it. And so with that, before we move into tea, I will give Vibhu the microphone.
Thanks, Jim. So how was it, guys? Did you guys enjoy? Okay, so this sort of is what is a day going to look like. I had fun. I had a lot of good learnings in that table. So I just want to share a few things before we break for chai. I know you guys everybody's tired. So one is we have the best selfie award for the day, table selfie award. So if you have spent an hour with someone, figure out how to squeeze all these people in your picture, in your camera. Right? You find out whose camera is the best camera in the table, and then tweet it to #Lean India Summit. Okay. And then we'll know the table, maybe put the table number there, 1 or something like that, right? So we'll know what table it is, and then that's a memory that you can capture, and then maybe we'll keep it as. So we'll see how you can fit. The larger the group, the tougher the picture is going to get. But we'll try it. It's an option if you want to do it. Amazing. That'll be cool. Okay. The second thing is, again, #Lean India Summit is the Twitter feed if you're looking for something. So here, there's a wall that's come up. Tomorrow there is an open slot. We have selected speakers for most slots, but there's an open slot. I assumed people may want to talk about something based on today's conversation. So if you want to have anything for tomorrow at the end of the day, right, left out, you feel like urgent to talk still, this conversation need not be over. So end of the day or anytime you want to add topics you felt is needed, move them to that wall, and then you can do an open track out there, right? So it will be like more conversations however you want to have. Okay, awesome. So with that, we should take a tea break. 15 minutes, we should be back in here. So 11:15, so 11:30, prioritize between tea, coffee, restroom, cell phone, and be back here at 11:30. Yeah. Till lunch from now.
Here we're going to do, we're going to walk back out into the hallway. Okay. So we're going to go populate the board again. And so come on back out into the hallway. We're going to go do some more board work. All right, welcome back. So there's a kind of invisible line here in my tape, which I'll make in blue tape later on, between new stuff and not so new stuff. So we've already had some people add some new stuff here. I think that's new too. I don't remember saying it before. That you have new things in your heads that you would like to talk about. So what we'd like to do is come up and talk for about 5 minutes. So.
Additionally, if you feel that the topic that you spoke about at your table, that you did not exhaust it and you want to have a deeper dive on the
we did last time. This one's going to be a little bit shorter so that we can make lunch on time, because I think everybody likes to eat. So go, and I believe that we'll go for about, all right, so yeah, we'll go for about 40 minutes. Hopefully this time will be a little bit faster for us to get into the groove. So go.
Who was making a statement today, and you are the recognized team, and you only but end of the day we need to make something. Each that person or that user cannot choose everything
The Scrum Masters and the manager, we have a structure for our management.
Some people want to be only in the development. Correct. I just wanted to share we have tried both the things. So this is the final thing which we did is the you say 50% starts becoming 200. Right? He ends up in doing this and that.
Even the basic behavior that ends up with an agile, we study for is agile stuff. It's a personal work problems.
We are talking about the project crisis. About the project crisis. That's what it means.
Okay.
What is the topic?
The best part is you can see all phases of benefits of an agile in crisis time.
Clearly means given out, okay, this is how it is going to be. So then people, the question comes from people by with different experience level, they start thinking in different ways. People probably will be comfortable with it. But if you see, in general, what we have is, when we have this type, right, architect, I'm only supposed to do architecture. I'm only supposed to work with EM or something like that, right?
Only. So how do you make sure to him that okay, within this cost this can be done? So can we have a pre-performance session?
The bigger problem is design has a tendency of see something and then the customer is right. What happens?
We're the best.
Yeah, I know.
Come on.
You can have a shared resource, it may not be available when
every organization changes, fine-tune the agile to suit their. We have seen early success in management. They basically try fitting them welcome in terms of if you ask me this are actually require
how to deal with powerful and influential leaders, this can come going forward 5
innovations about getting it through.
What we say is squeeze the requirements out of the customer. You have to elbow in, karate, you have to. You know what?
Talking about the Nano card, Nano was actually priced to be
But this will not apply for every product. But if it is a very an existing product, probably this will not work. That was our discussion in the previous.
For example, what I'm trying to tell is, if you take an engineer, okay, let's define what all activities he does in order of
questions. And another big challenge which people looked at was the person doing the estimate getting into the project. So we should make sure that the person who is estimating must do the project so that there is a good commitment built in, as well as having POS customers so that some gold plating can be avoided as part of the fixed bid project. And there are a lot of discussions and arguments that are going on. I think we are not still done fully. I think we will do it through our lunch and we may come back. Thank you.
All right.
Hi everyone. Our topic was how do you make the team own quality? So how do you make the team own quality? And I think some very basic questions came up. Does the team know that it owns quality? I mean, if you're a 5-year-old team or a 3-year-old team, you own quality. But does the team really know that they own quality? Because they're so used to being told, and so the command and control point thinks that they think, and they think that they own. So I don't know who owns. So I think one important part is that the team should know that it owns quality. And one of the points that came out was, what really is quality? I mean, zero defects, what does it mean? Like, I mean, is acceptance criteria enough? Is DOD enough? So I think one of the biggest problems is how do you quantize what is quality? And that's very key to it. The other questions that came up was, like how do you call out? Like common demos? If you do demos and, you have the entire team out there looking at it and playing around, and it's going to crash most probably, and kind of makes the team aware of where they are with the quality, calls them out. When people are out presenting in front of others, they feel a sense of accountability, right? I mean, and that really helps. Then one very interesting thing came out was defensive programming, which Gopal brought up. And a lot of us just look at that itsy-bitsy acceptance criteria and say, yeah, I did it. But how do you educate people on defensive programming? Like, don't inject bugs. Forget about finding them out later. How do you do defensive programming? How do you educate your team on it? Functional and things like that. I think Gopal is an excellent person to talk to, whoever wants to talk to him about defensive programming. And then Vibhu actually gave us quite a few pointers, and I actually came out of this discussion realizing that we really need to agile being a framework and stuff like that, but we do need to enforce some policies in our teams quite effectively, or even the team needs to enforce it, like stuff like cadence, and things like if there is core hours, we need to adhere to core hours. And if we are doing, if this is having very visible indicators, do not disturb. I'm working, 10 to 11, we are doing paired programming, do not disturb us. And it's nice to have like this touchy-feely, yeah, will not disturb, but it's nice to have these visual indicators saying, do not disturb. And then people, they get it into their DNA that this is an important part. And another very important thing was pairing, right? I mean, all of us, we are like Java experts or testing experts or C# experts. Eventually, the team needs to not make experts out of everyone in everything, but gain knowledge of what the other person does. And paired programming is key to it. So I think I covered everything in this. Right? Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Hello, table 4.
Hello, everybody. So the topic on our table for discussion was about T-shaped skills. So, which essentially means whether we specialize or we develop multi-skills. So the typical challenges that we see in a team are like people confused onto what track we want to choose. So one thing we all agreed was apart from vertical skills, we do need some breadth. Otherwise, that will not help blend the team and still achieve the excellence. So one epiphany, what I would say we came up with was knowing the context of our project, of our organization, or of the nature or the type of the project we are targeting. So does it really need T-shaped skills, or does it need skills breadth-wise? Figuring out that is very important. And yes, what we could not conclude on is like if there is a new person who is joining this agile team, how do we guide him for what track he should be choosing, and means which particular function should he be going? Should he go breadth-wise first, or should he go in depth first? Still trying to see that we are innovating was also one of the points for discussion, which we were still discussing, but out of time currently. Anything more?
I'll just add up to this. In the discussion, as she pointed out, the context, we were first starting to look at whether we are wanting a T-shaped skill, specializations in every individual versus having multi-skill in most of the individuals is defined by whether it's a startup organization or it's a mature organization or it's a specialized project like we had Mangalyan from ISRO. So then we realized that it's not so much about the context of what organization or scale of organization, it's more about the type of work, the context, which is if it's a product of innovation, it's brand new, the kind of which is barely ever done before, or at least for the team concerned, it's something brand new. They have not experienced it ever before. Versus a transactional operation, it's a maintenance project, you've done 20,000 products of that sort and it's like 20,001th product. So in that context, innovation, absolutely brand new stuff, you need experts, you need specialists, is our take. But if you're talking about transactional projects, we need more generalist. But when we talk about now the team versus individual, the team needs to consist or compose of all types of people. There was an interesting example of the cricket team. The cricket team cannot be all all-rounders. It can't be all bowlers. You need composition. You need the excellence out of the team working together with their special skills and some all-rounders and the captain as a facilitator.
You.
I know all of you are hungry. So our topic was how to measure value. So we started with what is value. We couldn't conclude it. Yes. But we have some solutions. Yes. So one basic thing is probably, you have selected your table according to the value, right? You went to table 1 because you think that is more value to you. We came to table 5, we thought this is going to add more value. So we all know what is value, but we were trying to kind of quantify what really it is. So there were 2 basic questions. When what is the value for the company we're actually supporting the transformation, and what is the value for the customer? So we did some voting, and then finally we figured out that we have to talk about business value. Yeah, did not conclude, but we had some ways of doing it. We identified there is an innovation game which is called Buy a Feature, where if your product owner is confused about what is value, how to prioritize, give him $1 million, probably in papers, and we can ask him to list down all the features which he has in his mind, and then kind of reorganize with this 100 million how much he's going to invest in different features. So depending on that, you're going to get a value. And on top of that, you can take the same list to the team and then ask them to kind of estimate. See how much it's going to cost. Probably value versus cost is going to give you some kind of an idea about which makes more sense for you. So that was one thing which we're talking about, and also about if the customer is completely confused about how to assign some number as value, we can do the same we do for our poker planning. You kind of separate different features and then assign the numbers with respect to Fibonacci series, and then do some triangulation and identify with respect to these features which is going to be better. So you may get some idea about what is value. But of course, with all this, each company have different definition for value. So probably you have to consult with the customer and understand what is really value means to them. So that's it. Thank you.
Hello.
Yeah, this team, we were focusing on the tools part of it. So first was we just wanted to understand what are the tools we use, and then what works, what doesn't work. And second is, are tools inevitable? So we got interesting feedback because all of us were using a different tool set. So the first thing was that there were a set of tools like TFS and Jira where you had a single tool which could really work out your project tracking and also for your technical practices. Like it could really help you in your version control, continuous integration, automated duty, and stuff like that. So basically in one platform you have a complete view on technical view and as well as a project tracking view. Whereas some other tools don't support it. It's purely what you call project tracking tool. So we looked at, so both options are available, and then when the organization makes a choice of the tool, they need to be aware of it. And second point was, we were also talking about in major organizations, you have the question of consistent reporting of their ongoing projects, which means that you have the challenge of having uniform metrics for projects or products. And then there we found that many a time that liberty of the teams to use a particular to do the work the way they want is getting constrained by such practices. And then to add to that, you also have fractured tool landscape in organizations. Like for instance, ALM will be one tool, their technical practices, CI will be another tool, defect management will be another tool, and half the time they just spend their time customizing the tool for their particular setup, and then no organization seems to be happy with a particular set of tool. And then every 3 years you see a new tool coming in, you spend a year trying to customize it, and then point is whether it's all needed. I think it's for all of us to really think about. And then lastly, we found that yes, project financial reporting is kept up, is separated in another tool, and I think that's a justified move given that we don't want to be very transparent with certain sensitive data. So, and then lastly, where we don't want a tool, if the team is completely co-located, completely what you call independent team, then I think they're better off using a physical board or an Excel sheet. And I think they don't need to get into the tool overheads. Yeah.
wading through the chairs.
Our topic was, as a coach, how do I change the culture of command and control in stakeholders or in companies? The top one which we picked up was about influencing, I guess the very obvious one. And then we discussed about how do we influence? How does a coach influence, or how can a coach influence? So these are the epiphanies which came out of it. One is, even for the leadership or the exec level teams, there should be a coach. That is someone who coaches the top level people, because they also need to know how to respond when there is a failure or success at the lower level. That's one which we came to. And the other important one is about training for the leadership team. First thing is, they also need to be trained before they even start providing guidelines, or even about talking about whether it is right or wrong, or how do we improve and all that. They also need to be trained. That's another point which came up. And then the third one was, there is also something called as a working agreement, basically that summarizes the first two. And then there is one more which we talked about, is the communication aspect of it. It's not about what you say, it's more about how you say it. And that is how you're going to get your people who you're talking to even listen to you first, even before even getting to decisions. So that is third one. These are the epiphanies we came up with.
Thank you.
Hello. So our topic was to have clarity on what traditional roles are, what are the agile roles, and then how this transformation journey from traditional roles to the agile role happens, and during this transformation journey, what are the insecurities people do have. So traditional roles, we discussed roles like software engineer, senior software engineer, technical leads and all. Architects. What we thought is probably the clarity and adaptation happens more quickly at very lower levels of these roles and very high levels of these roles. But the challenges are in the middle layer of these roles. For example, team lead, technical manager, architects, because they seems to lose their identity into when we try to map them as a part of one Scrum team. So we debated a lot. We could not come to a consensus, but probably there are some good ideas that we discussed in this process. One was that to see what are the traditional roles value are being, what are the traditional role is bringing the value to the organization or to the project. And based on that values, you try to see which role in the agile can best fit for these values. That was the one suggestion. Second was to see whether the organization can clearly define that there is a difference between title and the role what you expect from us or from the team. So title is something as towards the career aspirations, but role is something that that is demanded by the team at one given point of time. So bring this clarity to the individual, and it will be far easy to adapt into from traditional roles to the agile roles. Apart from that, there was a suggestion that somehow to be successful into this, people have to unlearn things from the traditional way and see where they can give more value to the project and what kind of tasks they can adopt themselves to as a part of team, and they can deliver the deliverables on time with good quality. Anybody would like to add? I think that's all what we discussed.
Hi, the topic of discussion on this particular table was trust and how to build it within the team. Trust in itself is a huge topic, a lot of undercurrents there in terms of, you can trust somebody's capabilities or his competencies, or whether just as a person, if somebody says, I'll be there at 10, will you trust that person or not, right? So there are various levels of trust that we can think about. And in terms of agile, what it brings in terms of lack of trust within the team, right? So we first discussed the problems and maybe a few leading things, suggestions that we can do to start building the trust, not necessarily achieve it completely, but at least start. So a few problems that we discussed were, we have an organizational structure typically in a team, in a company.
So even the levels of trust or the problems related to trust are different for different layers. Manager certainly doesn't find a fitting role. I think a point came up there that, hey, there are only 3 roles in Agile, Scrum. What do I do? Where do I fit in? Am I getting fired? An individual suddenly has to now work for the team versus a manager that he could please in the past and get the good performance appraisal and so on and so forth. Now that doesn't seem to work in Agile. So what do I do? And then on the other, completely on the different side, there are typically organizational structures like HR department, who is completely oblivious to all of these transformation things that you guys are talking about. At the end of the day, they basically ask, okay, I need an individual. I need that individual to be fit in a bell curve, and I need a number in terms of percentage. That's it. And I will put it in my system, and I'll do my magic, and I'll give you the number that you can share with that person. So that's the HR department typical view of Agile or any kind of transformation like that. And executives, again, if they are too business oriented, won't know, if they don't know or don't care enough about people and why, how to get the best out of people and so on and so forth, they might not care too much about your transformations either. So, these are some of the problems we discussed, and essentially performance management suddenly starts becoming the focal point for having trust or not having trust. So our suggestions were, first of all, start with basics. Trust is not between teams. Trust is between individuals. So, delineate performance for the moment. Not necessarily completely avoid it, but delineate performance evaluation and performance assessment from why do you need to work together, and make that value much more evident and visible to individuals to make it okay for them to work together. So a couple of suggestions we had was maybe have some team activities that will, going back to the point of suddenly having to work with the team, work for the team as opposed to the manager, being able to openly go and ask a question, counter somebody's point, and not have to worry about what he or she will feel about me. So some of the activities around that will help build some trust, some level of trust within individuals. Being able to know the strengths and weaknesses of each other, treat each other as humans first, and then as colleagues, and so on and so forth, so that when you have some weakness, when you want some help, somebody you can go to and talk to, and get the help you need, and and return it in kind to somebody else if there is a strength that you have. So these kind of things will help individuals start. It'll make it okay for individuals to start working together, and then that might help building the strength and building the trust within the teams. So that's all we had.
That's all. Okay. All right, my friends.
Hello, everyone. Agile kills innovation. That was the topic on this table. Can you hear me? I need lunch. When I came and sat on this table, I figured out that I was the only one sitting here. Thanks to these lovely people from SIQ to make me comfortable. And of course, Jim joined as well. So next time, there's a tip for you. If you want to interact at length with Jim, go and pick a table which is empty, he will join. Coming back to the topic, Agile kills innovation. So I was playing the role of a deprived and oppressed software engineers as against these lovely coaches who were trying to convince me that it is good, it doesn't kill innovation. So they first asked me, why do you think so? So I told it's the frequency of the sprint and the continuous delivery pressure. You need to come up with potential shippable code or a potential shippable product in every sprint. Yeah, so the point was the continuous pressure of this short duration and you have to deliver. So Jim, in fact, brought a very good point, is that people who have moved from waterfall to agile, they are just doing the same thing again. It's just like old wine in a new bottle. That a project manager has now become a product owner, and all he cares about is business value coming out of the sprints. So this is where the developers feel the pressure, and then any idea which they have, guess what, the product owner does not have the time to get that implemented. One takeaway which he brought was there was a company, I don't know which one, but the teams were failing sprint after sprint. They failed 3 consecutive sprints to just deliver one particular story. And then what the product owner did is, he said, okay, we are not doing this story anymore, go and do whatever you want to do. And they did it for 1 sprint, and guess what, they were back on track on the next sprint. So maybe this for the product owners, give some space for your developers, they will come up with the ideas. Okay, that's it. Thank you.
So, adding on top of what he said, we were having a discussion, myself and Jim were having a discussion on, on this topic of operation of the developer. And one quote came from Jim, which I liked very much and would like to share, that the developers are the highest paid oppressed class in the world. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you.
All right. Vikram.
Thanks. Yeah, we had the topic of how in an organization that moves from waterfall to agile. We also started this journey a year ago, and the common question that comes from everybody, not like one role, all the roles is, okay, from an engineer, senior engineer, tech lead, team lead, architects, junior architect, senior architect, all this ladder was clear. Now everything vanishes and you go into just 3 roles. So what is my growth path in the next 1 year, 3 year? So this is a common concern that many of us had. And what we thought was, the organization that goes to agile has to define the different ladders. Like for example, technical, which is engineering, and then agile, which is for example scrum master, facilitation, coach, etc. And then like management, at some point of time there are people managers. So we need to define those 3 ladders, or 3 or more ladders as applicable, and they should define how they can move up and laterally. I'll go into that in just a second, but we need to define that. It should be pictorial, just the last table, Vibhu was very specific about how Vibhu and I think others were very specific that if it is pictorial, people will understand. So pictorially, like represent how you can grow up and laterally to adjacent roles. That's number 1. And second, it's not about the roles. One thing we should change, or we thought we should change in the agile organization is, it's not about the tag of engineer or an architect, because architect in this organization might be a developer in my organization, and etc. etc. So it's like we have engineered the tags actually, between in this industry. So then talking about the tags, we can list the roles, responsibilities, skills, accomplishments, expectations in order of growth. Like I can develop something, I can write code, I can test, I can write a TDD based code, then I can design and write, So that will tell how in engineering the roles are. And then draw a line about the grades, because all people want is not, one is a tag, which is, for example, Indian market is very used to, but it's about the grade, what is your pay scale or how is your growth. So this pictorial representation of these skills, responsibilities, accomplishment will tell them this line is like grade, for example, 1, 2, 3, etc. So this will be, more helpful than, like fighting for tags. And this competency should be built for the whole organization. One board should give. It will help us to make the whole organization very clear what is our roles, responsibilities, and how is the growth. And he would like to add something.
Yeah, I just wanted to add. Is Harbhajan Singh a bowler? How many say yes? Did he not contribute to batting at critical times? Okay. Who is Sachin Tendulkar? Is he a batsman? But he bowled. As a team, you require different roles, but the title is team member. So it's a buzzword in Agile, probably a misnomer, where exactly we only have 3 roles. No, it's basically every role, we want a team to get formed out of different competencies. The competencies still stay. It's just that we're all team members. For example, in organizations like Microsoft, I have seen developers start growing to developer 1, developer 2, and then they get merged to software developer, engineer, test. That means they're capable of performing both. They're actually getting integrated. Similarly, if you take a Scrum Master role, Scrum Master gets to Scrum of Scrum Master role, and then he becomes a global Scrum Master. Similarly, if you take the developer, then after a software developer engineer test, he probably can scale up to component garden, and then probably further to an architect at enterprise level. So predominantly, both at the project level, at the team level, or at the program level, or at the enterprise level, different competencies of different experiences are required. Just like Harbhajan Singh doing batting, Anil Kumble doing batting, Sachin Tendulkar doing bowling. It's important that we require matured competencies. They still stay, but just that we contribute as a team member. The beauty here in Agile is when we are actually form a team, there's an opportunity to cross scale. I mean, probably Sachin Tendulkar wouldn't have found a bowler in him when he started his career. I'm sure, not even Anil Kumble. I think you all agree with me that Anil Kumble batted in the 11th of our team, even though his head got injured. So that's the commitment. So in Agile, it gives an opportunity to cross-scale each other, to unlearn, or to learn or discover potential among us. That's the point we want to bring.
It's not over. So we had one more point. Basically, we had a discussion on the team. I just want to ask a question and then discuss about it. How many in this room have felt, not now, I guess we are mature now, at least when we started our career or as of now, that we had not been recognized despite of our best performance to the team? How many? Not even one? Everyone was recognized? Okay, good amount. So the question that we were trying to solve is, does recognizing a single person in a team bring in challenges? So there are a lot of options to it. What we thought as a management team or as a client-side team, what do we need to do? We need to recognize the entire team. And then if you want to find out a rock star, ask the team so that they can nominate someone and you can basically give in some other recognition to that person. But once a success is achieved, never tag it to a single person, tag it to a team, because you don't know who is doing what. As a manager or as a coach, you might have a visibility to only 1%, 2%. You might not know everything. So the point is, look for teams, natural leadership capability, don't create perception, and don't try to be a leader of servant, be a servant leader. Thanks. Yep.
I had one difference of opinion to mention.
Okay.
So I was listening to the conversation here, and the certified Scrum trainer in me suddenly woke up from there, and I sort of was wondering, right? So there was a mention made. I mean, nothing against Krishna here, but the notion of I should be a Scrum Master, then Chief Scrum Master, or a team lead, or whatever, right? But what if you flip it and say nobody has titles, right? What if you have an organization where you can pick whatever title you want? That's what we do at Solutions IQ. Nobody seems to be worried about it, right? So it's just a matter of, we start behaving based on our titles. What if we flip it? Say in India, they want suddenly for getting married, suddenly you want to call yourself the chief architect. The organization should allow him to call whatever he wants so he can get married, right? So that takes away the whole idea. So I think the goal of being agile is to do things you love. I feel like titles is always coming in your way. That's all. I just want to mention that. But I know it's okay. Let's have that lunch post.
Sure, I won't take much time. In fact, the topic for us is estimation effectiveness when it comes to diverse environment. Like people capabilities are different, and enthusiasm and abilities are different. So how it get conflicts while estimating it. So the the reason for this topic is like when we have experts in the team or we have subject matter experts in the team, so most of the time the estimation will be driven by them rather than the people who are less capable or less understanding on the domain. So this always creates a problem. For example, if a person is highly enthusiastic, so he go and estimate and say, okay, this is easy to do it, we can do it quickly and complete it. So end of the day, what happens is it's just others will not get to know the details about it, and also we create a dependency with a set of people who are expert, and others won't grow along with the team. So that is the topic we discussed it. Of course, the discussion took a long and we could not conclude completely. So the plus points what we wanted to implement or we thought as an action is like amount of time what we spend in the backlog grooming. If we don't spend a good amount of time in the backlog grooming, people will not come to know the requirements or the details ahead of time. Of course, that will impact your planning, and people will not be effective in estimations. So we go just by judgment of experts. Second thing is the big picture. Unless we know where we wanted to reach end product, especially in the product development environment, end product you should know, and what need to get prioritized, what need to get estimated or things like that. The clarity should be there, otherwise it will not go in a good way. And the things we want to stop is individually estimating the stories. So we should not entertain people estimating individually without taking the contributions from others. So either it will be like underestimating or overestimating, or it go by judgments. So yeah, almost these are the conclusions we made. And of course, we had arguments between us, like estimating a story to an extent of one story point or two story point is not always possible. I know that kind of conflicts will be there in every sprint planning discussions. It's difficult to break it down, and how effectively people has done. We have got a few examples how nicely they have done it. So the conclusion what we got is like it's all lies in the way we backlog groom it. If you don't spend time in backlog grooming, of course you spend time during the sprint planning in the requirement discussions, and so you waste your time. So that's the conclusion we had. You want to add something?
Okay, so if you haven't already, make sure that your epiphanies make their way up to the wall so that everybody can see them, and we are going to send out an email after this with all of the epiphanies and all of the topics so that we all see everything. So now we can all go eat lunch until.
So we were going to do lunch for like 1 to 2, but we have gone 15 minutes over. I'm not forcing you. This is an agile conference. We can inspect and adapt. So if you can come back by 2, would be awesome. Lunch is served outside. Have lunch. If we try to start at 2, so no pressure on you. But if even one of you comes and says no, we'll start only at 2:15. Okay. So have a good lunch. It's outside. There's some sun outside. Enjoy. And we're looking for still selfies. We got one set done. Anything taking new ones, feel free. Pound Lean India Summit.
Box. I can add beans to it, I can add anything to it, I can add anything.
decide what you do. There is a plan to say
More counters. We've been forcing them. Let's see. More counters and coffee. So we'll try to improvise on those two. Coffee could be fixed last. Okay, so what we're going to do is Jim is, I don't know how many of you know, Jim's background is in something called personal Kanban, right? And so we thought we'll take a detour. I think it's post-lunch. You guys don't want to take it, and I don't know how good Jim is. We'll find out in a few minutes. If most of you nap, it's like good. So that's what we would like to do. So, so hopefully, let's have a conversation on what is this personal Kanban all about. I can only tell you that when I read that book, it changed my life. I've been following a lot of those things that is in the book. I think he also has some copies of the book, I believe.
We do have copies.
So we're going to give away some of the copies of the books during the day. Okay. So with that, check.
Okay. So my phone tells me that it is 1:45 in the morning where I live, and I've just eaten a good lunch. And so what will probably happen is I'll get about halfway into this and then just collapse to the floor. So let's see how we should go. So the way these talks usually go is because I like myself a lot. So I'd like to talk about myself. So my background, my original background was as an urban planner and transportation engineer. And so I used to build things like subway systems and freeways and cities worldwide. So the projects that I used to manage were very, 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 very big, like $5, $6, $7 billion projects. And in those projects, software was a little line item. It just said software, you know. So at one point in my career, I got very angry with the government agencies and ministries that I was working with and started a software company to write software for government to help government be better stewards of their data and more collaborative. And I did that for about a decade, and during that time, my company was all agile, and I kept trying to introduce lean concepts into the agile world, and after a while, David Anderson and I kind of broke through with that with the Kanban thing. So Kanban was kind of our bulkhead of saying, okay, we've talked about agile for a long time, let's actually talk about lean. And so Tony Ann and I wrote this book, which was at least important enough to change Vibhu's life. So we'll see what it does to you. But it's a book about actually applying lean techniques to our personal work, because in almost all of knowledge work, all of our processes are focused on the team, but all knowledge work is done in our heads, my head, your head, your head. And if you don't bring your head to work, nothing happens. And we overload people, we hurt people with too much work repeatedly because we because we don't work well when we're overloaded. So what we want to do is, that was my introduction to lean there. Lean for me is about one thing, and it's about paying attention. It's about mindfulness. So regardless of what lean techniques or tools that you might learn, the ultimate form of lean is understanding the work that you're doing and being able to not only do it better, but improve it as time goes on. So we can't do that as knowledge workers unless we actually understand what our work is. And the reason that we have so much trouble estimating is because we don't actually understand what we do. We understand the things that need to be done, but we don't really know how long things take. So 1-point story, 3-point story, 13-point story, 7 million point story, they're all the same. We can't estimate stories. Story points are, that's a rant. I'll save the story point rant for later. But what I'll say is that right now, everybody in this room has expectations made of them. By our coworkers, by our bosses, by our spouses, by our families, by our friends. And all of these expectations are kind of jumbled up in our heads. And we have to get them, or some number of them, done. But since we don't understand our work, and since it's all ethereal, I say, hey, you know, can you do this thing for 10 minutes? You say, yeah, I can do this thing for 10 minutes. And then you're overloaded, and you don't get to it for the whole day. And then I come back later and say, did you get that done? And you say, no. And I say, well, it's only a 10-minute task. Apparently, I can't even count on you to do a 10-minute task. And then I get all angry, and you get all angry, because none of us actually understood what your actual workload was. And so we have all of these expectations made of us, and they're all in these virtual sticky notes in our heads, and we have to figure out how to manage those in our heads. So each one of these sticky notes has a competency or set of competencies that it is related to. It has people who are interested in seeing it get done. It probably may have some people who are interested in seeing that it does not get done. They have costs, they have benefits, they have value, and they have periods of time in which they're actually valid tasks. So in the United States, we have to pay our taxes by April 15th. And if one of these sticky notes was pay my taxes, and it's December, it doesn't have a very high value. And then it gets higher in November, February, higher in March, and then round about April 14th, it has an extremely high value. April 16th, it has 0 value, and the ticket hide from the police is the next ticket. So we have all of these things in our heads that we're trying to keep track of. And so what we want to do is take this backlog of work that's stuck in our brains, write them down on Post-it notes, even if we're afraid of wasting a bunch of Post-it notes. And we take them out of our heads and put them onto a piece of paper. And they go from being this weird, jumbled mass of craziness to a rectangle. Look at that, it's a rectangle. And a rectangle is something cognitively that we can grasp. And we can take a look at it and we can say, aha, I now see all the stuff that I have to do. And wow, it's way too much stuff. And what am I going to do first? And who am I going to do it for? Without seeing what we're doing, we manage by what we call volume, which is we do the task for whoever's screaming the loudest. So we don't want to do that. We want to actually see our work. And when Tony Ann and I wrote the first blog posts about this, we thought it was interesting, and it had really worked for us and for the companies that we worked with. But what we weren't expecting was for people to immediately start adapting it to their personal lives. So people started using it with their children, in education, in therapy, and things like that. But we got an email from one woman who said, you know, my sisters and I have a father, and he is the most awesome father in the history of fathers. And he does everything. He fixes things when they're broken, and he makes sure that we're safe, and he does this and he does that. And he was diagnosed with stage 4 inoperable cancer. And the daughters completely lost their minds. They didn't know what to do because they were so used to him solving their problems for him. And so they weren't even able to care for him. They were just completely beside themselves. And one of the sisters had read one of our blog posts, and she made a personal Kanban of his treatment plan. And then they looked at it, and they're like, oh, that sucks. But it's just stuff to do. And so they took the scary stuff that was in their heads and put it into the not scary paper. So things we can't see are scary. And if you don't believe me, drive home like this. It's scary. When you can see things, you can react to them. So now we can see our backlog, and that's kind of step 1. And step 2 is to create what in Lean we call a value stream. So a value stream are the steps that you take to create value in whatever it is that you're doing. Repairing part of your house, building software, building a jet. You have a set of steps that you take to create value. The simplest value stream possible is this, which is stuff you haven't done, stuff you're doing, and stuff that you've completed.